Simba, you have forgotten who you are, and so forgotten me. Welcome in to the Bro Force Squad podcast, where we are just a bunch of bros drinking beer, talking movies. This is episode 229. I am your host, the Mayor, Jeff Hornacek. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight for the movie discussion. Before we get into it, let's go around and meet my fellow bro. It is our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli. Ronnie, I watched a show this week where a murder is being investigated, and it must be like science fiction because apparently if you're super rich and white, you get treated differently in our legal system, according to the show. That is not true, right?
So how are you doing, man? It's good to be on the pod.
But
yeah, no, it's definitely not true.
All right.
Our legal system's great.
Way to put me at ease. Way to put me at ease. All right, here on the Bro Force Squad podcast, we start every show off with the most important thing in any bro's life, and that is chest day. Our chest day today, it is a tribute to the legendary James Earl Jones, who this past week passed away at the age of 93. A cinematic icon, quite possibly the greatest and most iconic voice of all time. I would be very welcome to hear someone come up with a good contender who could maybe match him on that, because I don't think there is one. And Cycli and I, as a tribute of sorts, just really wanted to talk about his filmography, his career, some of his most famous roles, the impact they had on us. And he just lived a great life and was someone who, I know as a kid, whenever you heard his voice, you knew shit was about to go down, because he voiced, at least for me, two of the most iconic characters in media, I think. So, Cycli, thoughts on James Earl Jones, and then we can go through a few of his most popular roles and what they meant to us.
I mean, the guy, what an incredible life. I'm making 93, like one of these, one of these guys make it this long, and you're just like, what a life, right? Like, so I'm not saying we're not gonna miss him. We are, but like he did it all, and his voice genuinely is going to be around forever, like literally. Which is so cool. How if you take his legacy and impact, I know we'll get into that, but like he is going to be part of society for the foreseeable future, where our kids or our kids will hear his voice and know his voice. That's just undisputable fact to me, because it's just so iconic and part of everything around. And like, so obviously I remember watching CNN with my parents as a kid, and he would do this is CNN, and I was like,
that was him.
Yeah, I was
You're like, fuck man. Yeah, it is, James.
I was like, yeah, dude. Like, I'm like, he could literally just say like the simplest thing, and his voice would just like be like, oh yeah, man, this is CNN. It is. I didn't realize, but it was. But I also think about him in the sense of like, he was more than a voice actor, which is I think he'll be remembered for the most. But I think as he got older, he definitely went away from maybe more stuff, but we'll get into that. But he did rely on his voice as the years went by. But I do remember him growing up, not just from Star Wars, but like The Hunt for Red October, things like that, where he wasn't just there for his voice. Like, he was more than that. I think that's what he'll be remembered for. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think we should start our conversation with Darth Vader.
Absolutely.
I don't know how.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. So originally, and I've heard a couple different iterations of this story, but I think originally George Lucas in A New Hope had the actual actor in the suit doing the voice of Darth Vader.
You can watch YouTube videos of it.
Okay. So was that just a decision that they had made in post, almost like when Mike Myers said, let me redo Shrek with the Scottish accent, where George Lucas is like, this just isn't working, we need something else? Or had they always planned that and maybe just didn't know it was going to be James Earl Jones? And then, of course, once you hear him, you're like, well, that's it. I mean, that's fucking Darth Vader.
What I'll say is I feel like I've heard the latter, where they brought James Earl Jones later on to do the recording. Obviously, they had to film everything first. And whether or not they were going to use the actor's voice, he had to say the words, like he was going to say the words while, filming the movie. But it's so, I don't know, have you ever gone and watched the Vader scenes with the original actor's voice?
I have not.
You should. It is so weird.
What kind of voice is he doing? I'm assuming he's still trying to be like.
It's his normal voice. I mean, it's his voice. It's like, okay, it's the guy,
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a spy.
He's a sassy gay guy. He's like,
yeah, that'd be so
hello.
great.
She
was alive. I felt it.
I would pay. Actually, no, I would watch that movie now. That would be iconic.
100%.
But no, it's the voice. When they take off his mask at the end of Return of the Jedi. It's just. I'm not saying anything would have been bad, and it's obviously we can't go to an alternate universe to see how iconic Darth Vader is in this world where they didn't have James Earl Jones do it. But what I will not be convinced of, maybe it would have been fine, and Star Wars is just as big as it always was. But what I will be convinced of, I don't believe Darth Vader would have been the role and the icon and the character he became without the voice of James Earl Jones. I think it would have always been a successful story, but I don't think everything would have centered around Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader.
No.
I think it became so popular.
The iconography of the only works when James Earl Jones' deep, bellowing baritone voice comes in after it.
Chills. Yeah. Like when he walks in the very first opening scene in A New Hope, and he comes through the smoke and the doors open.
Yeah.
And he gave, like, it's amazing what a voice does. He gave Darth Vader character, again, a faceless mask. I mean, it has a face on it, but you know what I mean, like an emotional mask.
Yeah, villain who can't emote with their facial expressions.
And you felt every ounce of what he was saying and doing, the evil that was portrayed, to the point where I firmly believe and we didn't get to live, we weren't alive yet for the original Star Wars, but we were very much in our teenage years for the prequel trilogy. Was the lead up to Anakin turning and getting put in the Darth Vader suit. Were we not just so ready to hear James Earl Jones's voice? I remember talking about that. I remember saying they're bringing him back. Like, are we going to get the voice?
Yeah. And he came back several times. He came back for the Obi-Wan show. He came back for Rogue One. I think he was actually in a few episodes of Rebels, maybe even one or two of Clone Wars at the very end.
He owned it. I think he loved it. Even though I hate the show Big Bang Theory, there's a clip of him I saw on Twitter, where one of the nerds on Big Bang Theory runs into James Earl Jones, and James Earl Jones is just like eating dinner or lunch. And one of the nerds, sorry, I don't know their names. I only know like Sheldon.
Don't apologize to anyone for not knowing that.
Just like freezes when he sees James Earl Jones, and James Earl Jones is like, let me guess, you like Star Wars. And like Sheldon or whatever is like, like nerding out and geeking out. And it's so funny because you think for a second James Earl Jones is going to be like, fucking these Star Wars nerds. And then all of a sudden James Earl Jones is like, well, guess what? I love Star Wars too. And he starts like,
that's awesome.
Out with him. Yeah, like I love that when a character doesn't need to feel like, oh, I want to get away and do other things. He loved that.
Yeah, he was like and I love Harrison Ford for different reasons as well, but he was kind of like the anti-Harrison Ford, I feel like, where he was like, I have a fucking blast doing this, and he knew what his gift was, and he was like, I want to share it with you guys. I know that I've been blessed with a voice that like no one else has ever and will ever have. And I got this role that at the time, I mean, in 72 or whenever it came out, like who would have thought that, like, you probably heard James Earl Jones' voice. I don't know what he had done like in his career at that point, but that's the cool thing about Star Wars to me. Everyone is kind of like buying as a penny stock, and James Earl Jones becomes like the most iconic voice of all time. Maybe because he's Darth Vader, or maybe Darth Vader is lucky because it gets the most iconic voice of all time in James Earl Jones. I don't know which is chicken or the egg scenario.
I do believe that I will stick with this. I think Star Wars is just as successful. I think there is all the spin-offs. I just don't think Darth Vader is as iconic to the lore. I think he will always be a villain, but I just don't think we as Star Wars fans and nerds would have literally been almost rooting for Darth Vader at parts, even before you knew he was good or he turned back to being good. I remember watching the movies for the first time. Actually, before I watched the movies, as a little kid, like being obsessed with Darth Vader, like getting the toys and everything like that. And I just think that was
I
from
was
that
Darth Vader
connection.
for, I think, my Halloween before I was the Power Rangers back-to-back years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
It was a
would
big
have been
deal.
cool. Yeah. I mean, I really do feel like, when they talk about in movies like, hey, no one else could have played this character. The movie turns out goes differently. If Heath Ledger's in the Joker, how
Right.
different do we feel about Dark Knight? I think Dark Knight is still a good movie without Heath Ledger. I just don't think it's, as iconic as it is. I just think that's the line that's the difference between bringing James Earl Jones. You got something that's already going to be good, but one guy can make that much of a difference.
Just elevates it, man. Yeah. To segue, so probably his second most iconic role, another one that he portrayed multiple times and across so many different forms of media, is the legendary Mufasa, which we quoted off the top of the show.
Tingles me.
So I think you can argue that Darth Vader obviously is like probably his most iconic role and maybe the most iconic villain in the history of cinema. But I think as far as James Earl Jones roles, Mufasa's character has the most emotional. It's the most emotionally integral to the movie that it's in. I mean, the Mufasa Simba relationship, the Mufasa Scar relationship. This is where, as a voice actor, I think he showed how much you can still get or deliver in terms of gravitas and emotion, even though you're not physically seen on screen. Because I don't know about you, you can call me a pussy, you can call me a bitch. I still go back and watch The Lion King, and the scene where he comes through the clouds to talk to Simba that I quoted off the top still gets me teary-eyed.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, "You have forgotten who you are, and so forgotten me." He's like, "No, I haven't."
But his voice, and again, it goes into the Darth Vader thing. You give that character, again, Lion King is a good movie. You give that character a different voice. Is Mufasa looked at like, when we look at Mufasa as watching that movie, you look at him as this like leader, this king, this empowering figure that strokes fear in his enemies, that strokes fear in his brother. I just, you can have the exact same lines and it will still be great, but like it made him a legend, and you understood why Simba was intimidated by his dad. You understood why the hyenas were like shivering when you said his name. It wasn't the name Mufasa; it was who Mufasa was.
Yeah.
And again, it's just like it's amazing how you can literally have everything be identical, but one person makes the difference.
Well, I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I'm missing like an ancillary character, but in the live action quote unquote remake that Disney did, wasn't James Earl Jones the only voice that they brought back from the original?
Yeah, you can't do Mufasa without it.
And I remember we were talking and we were like, you know what? I would actually kind of be totally down. Like Donald Glover as Simba, really cool. Beyonce as Nala, great. John Oliver as Zazu, perfect. Even though I loved Rowan Atkinson as Zazu as well. But you don't fuck with my Mufasa. You know what I'm saying? Like that's one of the like stalwarts where our generation digs in and they're like, all right, you can change a lot of things up, but like don't touch Mufasa's voice. And I'm glad they didn't. And James Earl Jones was probably like a little surprised they called him back too. But if you're him, like let's run it back, bro.
Yeah, dude, like you can't. It's kind of, and unfortunately, Aladdin didn't have this option because sadly we lost Robin Williams. But I mean, when they did the live action Aladdin, and I will defend Will Smith as someone who has like Aladdin's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, he was fine.
Like he did a good job. I think what I appreciate is that he wasn't trying to be Robin Williams.
Correct.
Like
He made it his own.
Did a good job. But it still holds the role back. It still held the whole movie back in a way. Now, I personally thought the live action Lion King was awful. Personally, due to the animation style, and I don't even know why we call it live action because maybe it's the contract lawyer in me. That is not live action, guys. Let's just not. We grew up on Homeward Bound. That's live action animal.
Yeah. Movies, are those lions part of the Actors Guild? I don't think so. Yeah, maybe they are.
So. But I think it was the same scenario. If they had the movie was already going to be iffy for most people, like all the live action Disney movies. But if you had someone else playing Mufasa, I think that movie goes from, oh, that was a disappointing live action cut to they fucking fucked with one of the best movies ever. You know, like
anytime the movie starts to veer off track, James Earl Jones comes back in voicing Mufasa, and you're like, all right, it's a little bit of comfort food here.
Yeah, I needed that. So like I really think, again, on the opposite side, he saved the Lion King live version to be just fine. Like where it could have just been one of the worst.
I do remember though. We talked about this on pod. I think when it came out, Banner was obviously being the big Disney head, like the most vocal about it. But I love Jeremy Irons' performance as Scar. I mean, I think I quote it more than like I even realize. But when they cast Chiwetel Ejiofor, I was like, that was one where I was like, all right, maybe bring Scar back. But I was fine with Chiwetel Ejiofor. But again, Mufasa was the one where I was like, don't fuck with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the hard point is like Lion King as a movie. You know, again, I went back to Aladdin. These movies are literally as incredible as you can get for Disney or animated children's films.
Right.
Like they're emotional, they're funny. The songs are banger after banger. Like it's incredible, beautiful animation, especially Lion King. So they were already fighting an uphill battle. Like, so
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, if they had brought back everyone, that maybe would have been better. But I think they knew that Mufasa or that James Earl Jones was a non-starter. You don't have that movie without him.
I wonder if he was the first call they made, and if they were like, if he's in, then we can proceed with the live action remake.
Yeah, I would have to imagine. But then I always remember that most people are actually dumber than you think.
That is very true. We're the smartest people on earth. One other one I just wanted to mention, just because as a kid, this was an iconic film for me. Really, like coincided with my coming of age. But him as Mr. Myrtle in The Sandlot, who I think teaches us a lot about like preconceived notions and like assuming things and like just like being afraid of things that really we shouldn't be afraid of. He ends up like essentially the entire movie, him and the Beast are the foil and the antagonist. And then you realize at the end that like actually, and it's sort of like the beauty of the story because none of the friendships would have been forged if they didn't think this. But you realize at the end, like, yeah, really, we had no reason to be afraid of Mr. Myrtle or the Beast. In fact, if we would have knocked on his door, this film would have ended in 35 seconds.
Yeah, but but as a kid, you don't think that way.
Correct. You're like, no, we need to spend the whole summer plotting to try and get this baseball back. What if we knocked on the door? Did you not hear Small's story or Squint's story about it, the Beast? It's like you weren't even at the same sleepover I was at. Yeah.
Yeah, I love. I mean, Sandlot's always going to be an iconic movie for that for us as as people who were literally of the perfect age when that movie came out. Yeah, it's funny because to me, I had always remembered him because I don't think I had seen Star Wars yet. Like I said, my dad loved Tom Clancy and the Jack Ryan movies, and so like The Hunt for Red October was my dad's like one of his favorite movies outside of James Bond. And then I think he was also in Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games. And so he was a big part of that film genre. And so I always actually like knew him as, again, I didn't really put him as a voice actor for a longest time.
Yeah.
And like Lion King, I mean, again, he had a powerful voice that was undeniable, but he wasn't like, it's funny now that we're going to look back on him as a voice actor, but he really was so much more. And he was fantastic in those movies too. I mean, he plays a strong presence in those movies, like very military-esque, like, again, with his voice, it carries it. So, and I think Lion King, I don't think I actually watched Star Wars till after Lion King. But I still knew who Darth Vader was, so it was just like you didn't need Star Wars without Darth Vader. You didn't need to know the movies of Star Wars to know how iconic Darth Vader was, and that's kind of my point, is due to his voice. And so yeah, I think I need to text my dad about that because he literally, I think, rewatches Hunt for Red October maybe once a week. And one thing I do want to mention too, as a big Simpsons fan, like at least the first 9 or 10 seasons, which was like maybe the greatest TV ever.
Sure.
He was in 2 iconic episodes as two Lisa centric episodes as Bleeding Gums Murphy, where he plays the saxophone, and they are very, like, this is what made The Simpsons what it was early on, because The Simpsons wasn't just like, hey, we have a wacky family and they're going to get into some hijinks and Homer's a dummy, and like it really had emotion and feeling and thought into it. And Bleeding Gums Murphy was like only person that Lisa could relate to because she was the nerd, she was into music, and the family never related to her. And he's voiced by James Earl Jones. But what I love, and you love this part, because at the end of the second episode he's in, the character dies. Bart's having surgery in the hospital, and she sees bleeding gums in the hospital, and no one's there to visit him. He doesn't have family, doesn't have friends, and Lisa's the only one who cares.
Jeez.
And then she finds out that that bleeding gums Murphy dies, and she's the only one who goes to the funeral. And then she runs away from her house, and she's out in the middle of a pasture, and it's nighttime, and she's just playing the saxophone, and it's raining on her, and she's crying, and all of a sudden a cloud forms, and
Oh God.
and Bleeding Gums Murphy's like, Lisa, and she's like, she's like, why did you have to die? And he's like, I'm not really gone as long as you remember me. And all of a sudden Mufasa comes out of the cloud. She's like, Lisa. And then all of a sudden Darth Vader comes out of the cloud.
Oh my God.
And Lisa. And then all of a sudden his actual face comes out. He goes, this is CNN. And Bleeding Gums Murphy goes like, will you guys leave us alone? I'm having a moment with Lisa.
Says this is CNN.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's just a fantastic little callback to how iconic.
You're like, why we have James Earl Jones here? Well, let's just utilize you to your fullest extent.
But it's just a hilarious scene and a very emotional moment. But which was again what made The Simpsons great. But I always loved him for that, because I was always watched The Simpsons religiously at the time. So yeah, that was another thing. I mean, I don't think he gets a lot of people don't know about, because that was like 30 years ago, and relatively minor role.
Yeah, Geiger always has a saying for like actors that join franchises and they're willing to like do whatever they can in service of their character, like whether it's a small cameo in something or like voiceover work. He says they're down to play ball, and I think that's a really good way to describe James Earl Jones. Like, he knew how much fans loved a lot of his characters, and he wasn't like annoyed by that or put off by that. I think he embraced that, which is just it's kind of crazy how rare that is when you think about like the role of an actor, right? It's like to perform and entertain. So you think they would welcome that, but like we always talk about Josh Radnor from How I Met Your Mother, and I know he's changed his tune a little bit, but like David Schwimmer from Friends, like these actors who are known for something and fans are just so passionate about their character and their work, and they almost seem like put off by it or like annoyed. And James Earl Jones, I never got that feeling, but that's how he felt about his iconic characters. And at the case in point, he would revisit them and like portray them in so many different mediums to give us more of them.
Yeah, I think that's what makes him the best. Like, he just, you're right. You said at the beginning, he was just having fun. He knew what he offered to people, and he knew it brought joy to people. And I think that's why, again, when he passed away, the first thing you think of is like, man, that guy's voice is literally, and I mean literally, going to live forever.
He will never go away, and that's awesome. That's the way it should be.
Isn't Star Wars one of the movies? Didn't we send a bunch of movies and music into space, like what was considered like fundamental art of society, just in case aliens or anyone ever discovers it in thousands of years? So you could even imagine in millions of years from now, some alien species, after humans are extinct, find Star Wars.
Yep.
No, like
I only hope that Suicide Squad is in that thing as well.
The first one?
Yeah. The non-air cut, so they can see. But let's let them decide which one they like more.
I would love for us to have sent 2 satellites up, one with the really best like of us as humans of what we've created, and one with like the absolute worst.
Yeah. Baywatch.
Hey, that's on the best one.
And have aliens decide for themselves what is classy and what's not.
What if the aliens watch this and they're like, no, we're going to Earth. We're going to kill them right now. This is awful.
We deserve it. Like, why are you?
We watched Madam Web.
Oh, Madam Web? Yeah, that makes total sense. Where does the line start to get executed?
I would think that'd be hilarious. I would love our government to do something actually funny for once.
They have no sense of humor. All right, Cycly, any last thoughts on the legendary James Earl Jones?
No, like I said, final thoughts are just he's always going to be with us in that sense. Like, we will never hear these iconic characters without him, because we literally can't. And so he's always going to be a part of it.
Yep, his voice is a part of the cultural zeitgeist now and forever. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones. You got a hell of a life and a career.
And you did say it. I don't think there is a second one. I mean, it's debatable. There are some great voices out there. I just don't.
I mean, right now I'm struggling to even think of something like in his same stratosphere. Maybe I'm missing an obvious one, but nothing's like popping into my mind.
No, I mean, I can think of some great ones, but it's just like, it's not just the voice; it's the characters he also portrayed. It's a combination of the two. And I think there's a lot of people with great voices. They just haven't done the dark
ironically,
voices.
and maybe I'm a little biased because I have a huge affinity for obviously superheroes and Batman, but his on-screen son, Mark Hamill's turn as the Joker for the better part of 2 decades. I don't think it rivals anything James Earl Jones has done, but that's maybe for me, one of the most iconic voiceover roles I can think of as well. But again, doesn't even hold a candle to Darth Vader or Mufasa. Really.
No, nothing can. Yeah. It will be another generation till we have something like that.
For sure. All right, moving on to our protein shake. Second part of our show, we go around and talk about what is in our cup, also known as what have we watched lately. Slightly, I don't have much, 1, maybe 2 things, so I'll let you go first. What have you seen since we last spoke?
I'll start with this because we had talked about it off pod, and you seemed a little hesitant on it. So if you have any questions, let me know. But I just recently started Chaos, spelled Kaos, on Netflix, a semi-modern telling of like the Greek gods are real, and they still exist in the modern world. And the modern lore, the lore is real. So when people die, they go to the river Styx. It's all the things we learned in middle school about the Greek gods. And Jeff Goldblum plays Zeus, which that's always fun. And there's other. I can go over the cast list, but I won't waste too much time. It's giving Romeo and Juliet 1996 vibes.
Where the guns are swords.
Yeah, so it's like. So obviously Romeo and Juliet 96, the dialogue is the Shakespearean dialogue. That's what makes the movie unique, right? Like this isn't that. This isn't using archaic language. It's not using ancient language. It's using very much modern English. So when I'm comparing Romeo and Juliet to this, I'm not making that comparison. What I am saying is, if you remember the stop fast motion they did in Romeo and Juliet, and have like words come across the screen, and then the vibrant colors and the music and the intent, and the zoom ins, up close shots. This very much is giving me Romeo and Juliet. And so I always have said that Romeo and Juliet 1996 is you either love it or you hate it. And I personally love that one.
I hated that, so I don't know if Chaos is for me.
So, but because I think a lot of the reason people might have hated it though is because it's hard watching the modern scene with the Shakespearean language. So at least you're not getting that in this.
Yeah. To me, it felt like an art house project. Like it's contemporary in aesthetic, but it has I'm pretty sure verbatim, like the original play.
It's so in terms of the structure, I'm only 3 episodes in. So, it's very much black, dark humor.
I got that. And Goldblum excels at that. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And the plot about it is, Zeus is living up on Mount Olympus, and he just feels like the people don't care about him anymore. But he's also feeling there's a prophecy that he feels like people are coming to destroy him. And he doesn't know it's
real. Like a paranoia.
He's extremely paranoid in this show. But I actually am really liking it. It feels really original. I really like the colors. I like the way the cinematography of it. I wouldn't say it's like the greatest thing I've ever seen by any means, but it's been refreshing to kind of see something like new. And I'm having fun with it. And the first episode, I was kind of okay. The more I'm watching it, the more into it I'm getting. And I actually think the performances are really well done. It's a cool take on Greek lore. So it's just seeing the different characters play the different gods and seeing how the show takes place on Crete. How they talk about the Trojans and things like that. It's just a fun take. So if you're someone who's being I just need something new and different, this is it.
Yeah, we give Netflix a lot of shit for putting out algorithm-based content. This feels like the antithesis of that. Could not be more conceptually unique. For better or worse, it has taken a big fucking swing. And when I saw the first trailer for it, I was like, what in the fuck is this? And it kind of sounds like that's what it's going for. A bunch of WTF moments, or at least it's on the concept of it. You're a little thrown off by it.
I will say I did not watch the trailer. I went into this blind. And that had more fun. I feel like I didn't see the trailer you're talking about. I don't actually feel like the show is that much WTF.
Okay.
It very much has a structured story.
The trailer gave me like a Wrath of the Titans meets like post-apocalyptic meets like what's the Cillian Murphy zombie movie? 28 Days Later. Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I got.
Maybe
from
it gets there eventually, but right now it's not given that.
Okay. Maybe it was just mismarketed. Could be the case.
It could be, and we always talk about on the pod like how the people who do trailers are not necessarily like I don't know.
Well, and Netflix specifically does not know how to market any of their shit.
No, they're terrible.
Sort of a recurring. They either don't advertise it at all, or what they do show you is like not at all an actual sale of the bill of goods that you're about to get.
Yeah, I hope I might go back and look at the trailer just to see what you're saying. Because I was actually surprised when you told me that, because I was like, oh, I actually felt like you might enjoy this, because it's funny, but it has a lot going on. Like again, they're playing it pretty well. So maybe I'll go and continue, and then I'll report back as it goes on. So maybe there's stuff I haven't even seen yet that might be where you're getting that, from the trailer.
Maybe I'll revisit the trailer. I saw it when it first came out like 2 months ago, and I just remember I wrote it off pretty fast. So maybe it was a little premature.
It's funny, I hadn't even heard about it. I was just, my wife's been out of town for like the last 3 weeks, so I'm like just scrolling Netflix. I'm like, oh, okay, sure, why not?
And I think Netflix heard me say that at some point, because they haven't even tried to suggest it to me, and they know I'm a sick fuck. They know what I'd be into.
Oh, that's funny. They probably did, actually.
Like, we're scared. We heard him talk bad about the trailer.
Yeah, so Chaos, I think it's worth at least giving a chance. If it ends up not being for you or the listeners, that's fair, but I think it's worth a shot.
Do you know why it's spelled Kaos?
No, and I'm wondering if we find that out, or does like chaos means something in the sense of like, but they do have there's a prophecy, and they spell out chaos in English, and they spell it Kaos, and then I'm sitting there going, did we change how we spell chaos? Because I will say, the spelling of chaos is the worst spelling in the English language. There's a lot wrong in the English language. Silent letters don't make sense, but I remember as a kid seeing chaos and being like, how the fuck is it spelled Chaos?
Explaining our language to people like coming in and trying to learn it, there's so many things you're just like, dude, I can't justify this. I'm sorry.
No,
it's just how it is.
I remember pronouncing it Chaos, and my mom was like, oh my god, like,
Shamaleon.
Yeah, she got like really sad. Like I was like, oh, she's like, oh my gosh, my son can't read. I'm like,
dude,
what? How else should I read that? In what
actually,
world would I
Chaos sounds pretty badass.
Yeah,
like the bar, everyone got in a fight. It was Chaos.
Yeah, it was Chaos, bro.
That sounds pretty sick. Actually, let's start saying that. Let's make it a thing.
I will. And Chameleon.
That took a lot of character to admit that. Nice. Chaos on how many episodes?
I think 8 to 10. I'm only on 3. Yeah.
Are they like 40 minutes?
Yeah, they're about 45 minutes. Maybe some of them might be longer.
Interesting. That's right at the threshold where I can handle a show.
See, I mean, I really, because I'm the opposite. I'm like, ooh, 2-hour-long movie. That seems like a lot. Oh, 40-minute show, and I end up watching like 8 of them.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, there's some weird like mental block I have with a movie versus a TV show that's 4 times the length that I watch in 2 sittings.
Yeah.
But I can't justify it. All right. I actually also watched something on Netflix, a limited series. Is it 6 or 8? I can't remember. 6 or 8 episodes, about 40 minutes, called The Perfect Couple. It's likely, have you seen or heard of this? Because
I have heard of it, but not seen it.
Okay. I think this is one you and Robin Sparkles would really like. It is a delicious whodunit, as you like to say, based on a book, which my wife had read. And so that was my wife's interest in it. The cast, incredible. Nicole Kidman, Liev Schreiber, Dakota Fanning, Jack Rayner from Midsommar, the guy who has dates is Florence Pugh's boyfriend. A couple other actors. Oh, Megan Fahey, who was in season 2 of The White Lotus. La, 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 la.
That should be our rule on the pod.
Anytime someone says it, I totally
it's like
agree.
In How I Met Your Mother when you say like mage or something, we do a salute. Like, no.
Colonel stuck in my tooth. And a couple other really good character actors. And the plot synopsis is basically it's this rich couple a rich family, and one of the sons, I believe the middle son of 3, is getting married, and so they're in, I think it's Nantucket for the weekend, for the wedding and the wedding weekend. And on the Friday night before, the bride's maid of honor, who the bride comes from, she's not well off financially, but it's definitely a situation where she's nowhere on the level of the family she's marrying into. The bride's maid of honor turns up the Saturday morning after the engagement or the welcome party for everyone. She turns up dead and murdered.
Whoa. Dead and murdered.
Both. Well, dead, but from murder. That's how I probably should have said that. And we have to figure out, Cycly, who the fuck did it. And I got to tell you, this is one where I know when you and I watch whodunits, we like to try and get out in front of the murder. I'm making predictions based on
watching the background.
Right. Shit in the first episode. Something. I remember telling my wife, I was like, I don't like the way that guy picked up that hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah. She's like, sneezed. Why did he sneeze like that?
She goes, you need to fucking relax. I was like, I'm on high alert here. If you want to let the killer just walk around under our noses, laughing
You see how he's holding the knife at brunch?
Yeah, of course. Well, he was cutting his eggs. He was cutting his eggs Benny, so.
Okay. Yeah, that's murderous behavior.
This is one where this is all I'll say because the whole fun is in the mystery figuring it out. I did not predict who the killer was, but the wrinkle that they throw in at the end is really smart, makes a lot of sense, and I was very satisfied with it.
So how how many episodes?
Let me double check. It's 6 or 8.
We watched it in 3 kill me because I just need to know. I am so bad. I need to know. I have no patience, so I will just keep watching each episode. I'm
6 episodes, anywhere from 35 to 50 minutes each.
Okay. Is there obviously you said it's a whodunit. Would you call it a dark does it have comedy? Is it straight drama?
There is a little bit of comedy. Some of the characters, just because they're so rich and out of touch, make some really funny comments. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's definitely more on drama thriller. Every episode there are dramatic thriller elements.
So they're taking it seriously.
Pretty seriously, but there's the cops are pretty funny in it. They make some when they're interrogating these rich people, they're just so fucking over people that think because they have money they don't have to talk to the police, that they make some really funny comments.
I'm in.
So the actress who plays the woman marrying into the family, her name is Eve Hewson, and while she looks really familiar, I actually don't think I've seen her in anything, but she actually, did you ever see the Taron Egerton Robin Hood with Jamie Foxx?
No.
So she is apparently Maid Marian in that. I didn't see it, but that's what her best known role is.
I even forgot that movie existed, to be honest.
Yeah, I did too. And her agent has probably had a big uphill battle getting her cast and things because she was really good in this. But you would think getting to play Maid Marian would be a nice career stepping stone. I haven't seen her in anything. And you and I watch a lot of shit.
Yeah, we do. Too much.
But I would highly recommend this. It's 6 episodes, and we watched it in basically 3 days. 2 episodes a night.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I have to watch it fast. I can't sit there for a week. Be like, I need to know this shit, man. The second I'm so bad at that in real life. I need to just
I know.
If I'm watching a documentary, I immediately well, I'm going to the Wikipedia page because I need to know.
I wonder if your wife has heard of the book, because my wife had, and apparently the author of the book gave the show, and this is really interesting to me because maybe this is part of the deal to option a book, but I wouldn't find this hard to believe that many authors would do this. The author gave the showrunners carte blanche to change any aspects of the story that they wanted. So my wife actually said the person, well, maybe that's too much. The murder happens pretty fundamentally differently in the show than in the book, and it actually adds some very key elements to who is responsible for it.
That is interesting. You'd think you'd want to have some control to respect the story.
Right. I mean, these IPs will forever be linked. They'll say the series based on the book. And so if there's too many changes, people will be like, well, what the fuck?
I wonder if because it's a whodunit, and I always do feel this genuinely, because once you know the end result, maybe the author was saying this is an opportunity where people can come in and be excited. Like, oh, maybe they don't know every detail.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. My wife, at the first 3 episodes, she was like, she had read the book years ago. She goes, I don't remember who the murderer is. And then by episode 3, she was like, oh, I just remembered.
Did she enjoy it compared to the book, or?
I think she preferred the show. Like, so there's this really, and I've seen interviews with the cast about this. There is I never thought I'd say this sentence, but there is a banger song in the intro by Meghan Trainor called "Criminal."
Not a sentence I expected you to say.
Nor did I ever in my life. And the cast it's almost so tongue in cheek that it's like twisted and sadistic and dark. But the intro to the show, the whole cast does like a Bollywood dance to this song "Criminal." And then it cuts back to the show, which is like nefarious and dark. And I kept telling my wife goes, this is so fucking goofy. Why are they doing this? I go, in a weird way, it's like really fucked up. Yeah. Like this woman's murdered and they're all like fucking dancing on the beach to this Meghan Trainor song. And then the show starts. And I just love the song. It's like already on my workout playlist. But the whole cast was like talking about how Nicole Kidman, Liev Schreiber goes, I'm just going to be honest, Nicole, you're the worst dancer I've ever seen in my life. So, he's like, it was bad. So the whole cast like making fun of Nicole Kidman because she has to do this dance. And they were like, we all kept thinking while we're doing this, like, there's no way this makes it into the show. And then we would see the episodes and be like, oh yeah, that makes it even more fucked up. I'm so glad this is in there.
Yeah, I'm in. You've sold me.
Perfect. I think you and the wife could honestly crush this weekend.
We probably will. She's landing tonight and she's gonna be so exhausted. I feel like other than football, we'll probably just watch TV.
Yeah, there you go. Have football on the side TV, you know?
Yeah, that will work.
All right, that's all I got. That's all I'm going to talk about. Everything else I put, if you want to check it out, in one of our squad blog protein shakes. So that was posted sometime last week. There was 10 other things I watched I put in there. Some good stuff, some stuff I loved, stuff I hated. So give that a poke if you'd like. It's like what else is in your cup?
I'll talk about a couple other things. That 90s show. The second part of the second season just came out about a few weeks ago.
Okay, I really was shocked at how much I ended up liking the first season. It was really slow to grow on me, and I don't think it's good television, but for some reason I just found myself drawn to it. For whatever reason, I cannot get myself to start season 2.
Okay. Banner and I have been texting about this nonstop. It's so good.
Really?
I cannot. Okay.
Do they lean more into the 90s this time?
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know how a lot of seasons 1, we've always talked about season 1 on shows, like just especially sitcoms. The actors don't know the character yet. Like they don't know who they are. Like it's just like everyone's in kind of this awkward stage. And especially
like
with
Seinfeld, Kramer is like, who the fuck is this?
Yeah, it's like so much awkward. Even the like season 1 of The Office, like all these things is like it's a different show.
Example.
So I think that the first season of that 90s show, and I remember talking about it with Banner on the pod, and I think with you, was like, it did what it was fine. It was fun. Seeing Red and Kitty again was good. Like how can you not want to see them on TV? But it's like, it's still living under the shadow of that 70s show. And sorry. And anyway, the second season, the characters, the show itself discovers itself outside of the shadow of that 70s show. It's no longer trying to be like paying homage to that 70s show and just trying to give fan service. It is genuinely turned into a funny show that I was like shocked at how much fun I was having watching it.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's like as
I know you and I were upset because this is what I felt was happening with How I Met Your Father just as they pulled the plug.
Yes.
Like it was finally finding its footing. And
that's exactly what it is.
Oh, God. But I feel like Netflix, I may be totally like, this might be revisionist history and someone's like, I can give you 5 examples of the opposite of this. But I do feel like Netflix, because they have such a content quota to fill, they give their shows a little more runway to figure things out.
And I'm relatively imagining this is a cheap show compared to the others.
Oh, yeah. The set's was already built. I mean, maybe they tore it down, but I mean, how much can it cost?
I mean, Red and Kitty are probably the biggest, most expensive. And what else are they doing?
Right.
That's all I'll say. I talked to Banner. We both felt like genuinely the show doesn't have as a right to be as good as it is.
And Banner is a massive fan of the original. So for him to like give this even like a fair chance is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's what I'll say is like if you can get over the initial comparison to that '70s show, which is so fantastic and amazing, and allow these characters to just be themselves and not mentally be like, this is supposed to be this character, this is supposed to be this is supposed to be.
Well, I
Like,
think that's what I was worried about in the first season because everyone was essentially related to someone else. Like, okay, really, that's Kelso's son.
Kid.
Like, come on, man.
Yeah. The second season again, it just has its own stories. Is it set in the same universe? Obviously, we're still getting Red and Kitty, but for the first time, I actually felt like the first season I was enjoying Red and Kitty the most because it was just Red and Kitty.
Yeah, they're like member berries.
Yeah. Now I actually was enjoying the stories of the kids and the chemistry they have and the stories they're telling.
What's the Asian kid's name? He ended up being like my favorite.
Oh yeah,
like sassy dude.
Yeah, he's hilarious. I don't remember. Why am I forgetting his name? But yeah, in general, I think it's like, and the second season is getting much better reviews too. It's like in general. Oh yeah, his name's Ozzy. But I'm shocked. I don't think I ever imagined enjoying this show as much as I would have. And it got to a point where I was really upset that I only had like 1 episode left. I'm texting Banner saying like, dude, I really don't want it to end. Like, I think they'll probably renew it, but it's just really good.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't think season 1 was going to get the renewal. So because I also didn't hear good word of mouth about it, but when it did get the renewal, I was like, oh, maybe this thing does have an audience that I'm just like not plugged into on social media.
Yeah. I think you'll enjoy it. I think season 2 takes it, like you made a perfect analogy to that's How I Met Your Father. This is very much found its own footing and its own story. You cannot compare that '70s show to this and enjoy it.
How much of the like OG characters do we get in this? I'm assuming Laura Prepon actually directed a couple episodes in the first season.
We get her a lot.
Okay. Do you get any Eric?
No.
Any Kelso or Jackie? No. Fez?
No.
What? He lives in... He's at the salon.
I think they made a choice. Obviously, they have to with Leia and who her parents are. But I think they made a choice, and I think it's the right choice to kind of get away from that '70s show.
Does Leo come back?
Yes.
Tommy Chong? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's funny. He ends up being the dad to Kevin Smith, and Jay and Silent Bob are in this.
It's funny.
Which is so '90s. It's like
Do we get does Luke Wilson show up? I mean, he's Kelso's brother.
No, not that I remember. Yeah.
Okay, that would be a cool cameo if they could pull that off.
I think whether there was scheduling conflicts or just financial reasons, a decision was made, but I think it worked out. I think they it took away from someone else's story that the first season kept trying to be, and that's why I think the second season was so much better, both part 1 and 2.
Okay. Now, did you laugh a lot? Because season 1 I actually liked, but I don't know if I found it necessarily that laugh out loud funny.
Yeah. I don't want to. I mean, I guess it's not spoiler. There's a scene where Leia is having sexual fantasies, and she uses Doug Funny as her like person she's fantasizing about. And I'm like, again, it's peak 90s. They do more 90s stuff, and again, it's
100%.
And that's something they would have done in that '70s show. And I was texting Banner. I was like, dude, I am fucking losing it at her fantasizing at Doug Funny. And they have the animation. She's in the Doug Funny world and pork chops in it.
That is awesome. Pork chop too? Okay.
Yes, yeah. And Banner was like, dude, that was like my favorite scene in the whole thing. I was like, they did so much more 90s stuff that I was just cracking up. So was I laughing out loud the whole time? Probably not. I just had fun. That's what I was having fun the whole time I had it on TV.
Well, I think that's like part of the original announcement of this show. Like, the second part that had me excited, number 1, I love the original, but number 2, I'm like, well, now it takes place in the '90s, which is where we grew up. Like, that's our generation. And number 1, it makes you feel old. That's now like a nostalgic period to set a show in. But number 2, it's like, dude, to relive this, even if like the actual show isn't that great, like we could just have fun with the nostalgia porn of the decade that we had like our coming of age in.
They have found the happy medium between the two, and that's why I think it was so successful this time around. I was hesitant, to be honest with you. I was hesitant to watch the season 2.
Yeah,
I only did
it's one of those
Tanner
shows.
was like standing by it.
Yeah. All right. Well, now that you said it was great and the whole thing is released, that might be the impetus for me to give it a poke.
And it's like 22-minute episodes. Like they fly by.
Yeah, they are insanely easy to watch. Nice. All right. What else you got?
I'll be quick. I mean, right now, season 7 of The Circle comes out, so I'll save my thoughts for later on. I've talked about The Circle every season that they've done one. So there's not much to say yet. There's a couple of decisions they've made.
It's funny you say that because I think I said either last show or on my last protein shake, I just watched the movie The Circle.
Oh, that movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that movie.
Totally unrelated.
Very different. Yeah.
Yes.
The reality TV show on Netflix, The Circle. And yeah, it's The Circle. I always will have fun with the concept of it. So it's good so far. They're doing some interesting production stuff that I don't know a lot of people are happy about, but I'll get into that later on. And then continue to watch Lord of the Rings, Ring of Power on Amazon, which I talked about last time, so I won't go into detail. It's going week by week, so I'll save the serious conversation for when that finishes up. Yeah, I think that's the majority of what I've been watching.
When does Rings of Power end?
Probably like 7 weeks from now. Yeah.
Oh, damn. It's got a lot left.
Yeah, it should have 10 episodes. They released the first 3, and then it's week by week.
Got it. Smart. Keep the people coming back.
Actually, no, I have one more thing just to mention to you. And I've only watched 1.5 episodes of this, but I wanted to talk to you about this. Have you ever heard of the show Kevin Can F Himself?
Yes.
Have you ever
Very
watched
meta, dark concept.
Where it's half sitcom, half drama?
And it's loosely based, maybe not even loosely, on Leah Remini's experience on King of Queens, right?
I have no idea. I didn't know.
So
that.
I believe that, because I've only seen like a trailer and read a few things about it, but the title is implying that Kevin James, what's a tactful way to put this? Essentially when Leah Remini got pregnant and was not able to portray like the trophy wife on King of Queens, wanted her either recast or just ousted from the show.
Wow,
it's about like the misogyny in Hollywood and like the the boys club that exists.
All I'll say is the sitcom parts is when she's in the room with her husband. It's very sitcom-y and ha ha ha, and he's a goofy, stupid, like the Peter Griffin type husband, I guess King of Queens type husband. And then all of a sudden when she walks out of the house, it turns into like the camera structure changes, the cinematography changes, everything changes. Right, like you have a 3-camera sitcom style,
and then it goes to single camera.
Yeah. And I was just wanting to bring it up because I've only watched one episode and I don't know if I like it enough to continue, but I was like, this is cool. Like concept wise.
It's the like stuff that I read and saw about it. I was like, this is interesting. I think the thing that I heard is it just feels like an angry show.
Yeah, it is. That's why I think I wasn't like exactly like too excited to like. You're just like, man, this is a horrible situation.
Yeah, and I was like, I mean, I already hate Kevin James. Like, you don't need to. I mean, I don't really. He's just not funny to me. So you don't need to really convince me.
That makes a lot of sense if that's what it's based on.
Yeah, and I'm sure that I'm like really oversimplifying it, but whoever was behind it like had some involvement in King of Queens, or I think Leah Remini might have like pitched the show or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's just at the end of the day, as someone who's like married in their late 30s, early 40s, and just realizing like life is not what they hoped it and expected it would be. And when she's at home, she's trying to be that like good wife and trying to be like that happy partner. And then every time she goes out and just like life is just not like, it's just, what a lot of people go through. So yeah, I'm not saying I'm going to continue watching it. I just wanted to see if you had heard about it because I meant to mention that to you.
What are you watching on? Because I think it was like a FX original or like AMC or some like weird.
It just got put on Netflix, which is why I.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, which I was like, sure, I'll check it out.
Unrelated, but speaking of Netflix, do you know when You comes back for its final season?
Should be soon.
I think they're doing it in 2 parts. Which did they do that last season also?
They did, yeah.
I was not pleased with last season, so I hope that they end on a strong note.
They've been needing to end it for a while. It's been like, dude, it's like, all right, like we had our fun with it. Let's call it a day. I mean, I'm all about it, but I believe filming has either. I mean, I know filming is going on. I might have read something that filming is officially ended. They're in post production, but I could be wrong.
I thought I saw, and this doesn't mean really anything, but Netflix, like on their like screensaver, something came up like coming soon. Or
Yeah,
like
I saw that too. Yeah.
So I mean, again, they could do that like 8 months out.
I mean, they do that with Stranger Things 8 years later. These kids are like 40 years old now, so it's like,
Millie Bobby Brown is like in a geriatric facility.
Yeah, I don't need to see this anymore. I'm like, dude, I don't even remember the story. Like, I'm good. Like,
I'm worried that you is literally the scenario though of like they're trying to get blood out of a stone, like bleeding a show so dry because it's like, and look, the story of it's pretty interesting. Like it was a Lifetime original that people like laughed at and mocked, and then Netflix picked it up and like sort of lightning in a bottle right around the time that like the obsessive like stalker series were like all the in vogue. And now it's lived long enough to see itself become the villain.
And I love the first season. It's corny as fuck because it was on Lifetime, but I actually think the first season was the best one. I mean, but anyway,
we should go back and rewatch it because I remember being like, it was just like in television that I just could not stop gobbling up.
I mean, yeah, it's just it's bad TV that you like, guilty pleasure TV. Like you don't defend it by any
Did you and I
means.
talk about this though? So the like inner monologue narrated by Penn Badgley, who obviously has an incredible voice, but last season it was out of control.
Yeah, I don't know what that directing style was. Like
the entire everything that happens, he has to fucking narrate. And then I blinked my right eye. Like, dude,
that sometimes tells me that like something like they're having writers' issues.
Oh my God.
It's like Arrested Development, the first 3 seasons, iconic, one of the best 3 seasons, like just incredible TV. And then they brought it back on Netflix, and there was complaints like Ron Howard's narration, because they always had narration, but all of a sudden it was like narration incessantly, nonstop.
Yeah, it's
and it
weird.
was like at some point it's like, is that a writing room problem?
It's like the writers feel that like it's like so frenetic, like something always has to be happening.
Yeah, or like they just don't have substance, so they have to fill it with, like the voiceover makes it feel like they're actually accomplishing something. I don't know. But
it's just gross. It's loud. It's gross.
It was bad.
There's like no subtlety to it. It's like just constant noise. It's like the South Park episode where Stan starts listening to music and it all literally just sounds like fart noises.
Oh, that's such a depressing episode.
Yeah, it really is. But that's kind of what I felt like with you. I was like, God damn it. Like the thing that I used to love about this show is now like really grinding my gears.
Yeah.
What a tangent.
Yeah. What a tangent.
You see anything else?
Nah, nothing worth talking about.
Okay. That brings us to the last part of our show, our question and answer segment. Do you even lift bruh? Banner's not here to do. Yeah, there we go. Little parrot
he's
noise.
Here. He's always with us.
He's always with us. Today's Do You Even Lift Bro? We continue asking the question, what are the bros' top 100 movies of all time? In the description of this episode, you will find a link to our updated countdown. It's also on the very top of our website, bro4squad.com. Cycly, we are in rarefied air now. We are within the top 35 of our top 100 movies of all time. Before we continue the countdown today, I think we're each going to do 2. Why don't you give the people a quick rundown of what these lists are? Because when you hear someone's top 100 movie list, you might think like, oh, what do they think the best pieces of cinema are of all time? That's not exactly what we're doing here. It's a little more personal.
Yeah, it's literally what are your favorite movies. And when we say your favorite movies, you don't have to defend it in the sense like, well, the acting was incredible, cinematography, the directing. It's like, hey, this movie makes me happy when I'm feeling sick. Hey, this movie meant a lot to me as a child. And it can be a movie that won 11 Oscars, but it can also be a movie that was just like you were drunk once and cracked up the whole time and saw, and just like everyone hates, but you're like, dude, I fucking love this movie. It means a lot to me. So it's what are your favorite movies? Like that's literally it. And it's different from your own list. If you had what are your best movies of all time, you can look at this list completely differently. So we're just having fun with it, and we encourage you to do this at home because it is really fun and hard to do.
Yeah, and I think case in point, like on people's lists here, Cycly's own list. He has the movie Amelie, and then about 10 spots ahead of it, he has The Muppets from 2011.
Well, yeah, well, of course.
So there you go. Like that's how eclectic and personal is a star.
Am I
You
a
have
man or a Muppet of a man is the question there.
Muppet of a man. All right, so we're into serious territory here. Your number 35 movie cycling was the cult comedy classic Super Troopers. Mine was a movie that I don't know if a lot of people have even heard of, 10 Years, which we talked about, an incredible cast. Highly recommend it. What clocks in just ahead of Super Troopers for you at number 34 on your all-time
And this
list?
goes into my point of like how these these lists are. I'm going from Super Troopers to the 1984 semi-biographical movie Amadeus.
Wow.
So I grew up in a very musical family. Classical music was literally played all the time. My parents listened to classical music in the car to my frustration. I begged them to put any other radio station on.
Cyclist House has a piano that actually gets played.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, and so what's funny about Amadeus is like I think a normal person, you're like, oh, go watch this biographical movie about Mozart. That sounds relatively boring.
Mm-hmm.
But Amadeus takes some, liberties here and creates the story of like the genius and insanity of Mozart and combines it with whether this is true or not, right? Like we can debate this for, historians and musicologists can debate this all day. But the drama in which the movie is based on this rivalry between this other composer Salieri in Austria, Germany, Italy, over this time period that causes, honestly, Mozart's death. And the movie itself is like you would think of classical movie, it would be boring. This movie is highly entertaining, highly hilarious. One of my favorite scenes is actually, you might have seen this in Family Guy, when Stewie and Peter Griffin, he's like, play Peter Griffin. And Stewie's like, oh, that is a challenge. And then he like plays Peter Griffin, and then he farts afterwards, and everyone's upset. Everyone's laughing, and Peter Griffin is fast forward to him, and as an old man, he's like, it was at that moment which I knew I would have to kill him. It's like the references that have been made to Amadeus in cinematic and TV history is astronomical. I believe the movie was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards. I believe it won Best Movie and won Best Actor. I could be wrong about that. At least nominated bare minimum for. But the movie itself is just a fantastic drama thriller in a way, but also with an element of comedy. It's just perfectly played for something that you would think is like, oh, this is about opera and composing classical music. It's fundamentally a fantastic film, and what's sad is like the actor who played Amadeus Mozart was
Tom Holtze.
Yeah, and I think he ended up being more of a theater actor, but I mean his performance in this is iconic. It's literally probably a top 20 performance of all time. If you haven't seen the movie, his performance in it is, and then the other side of it, his rival F. Murray Abraham.
I love F. Murray Abraham.
Yeah,
he's
who's incredible. Yeah, I was gonna say White Lotus, baby. Who plays his rival? That like only in a way that Mozart doesn't even know that Salieri is his rival. Mozart thinks that Salieri is like he defends him and everything like that. And the movie crescendos to Mozart's ultimate demise and fall when he writes Requiem, that Salieri kind of forces him to, and almost forces him to work to death. And in my opinion, Mozart's Requiem, if you ever listen to it, and even if you don't know what it is, you've actually heard it. It's just you just didn't know it was called Mozart's Requiem. Is one of the most iconic and most beautiful pieces of all time. And the movie makes it seem like it was Salieri who forced Mozart to do this, and then Mozart dies because of this. And the sad reality is Mozart then dies and is put in an unmarked grave for someone who had such an impact, 200 years later on society.
It's wild.
At like 26 years old or whatever.
Yeah, these guys never get to see the impact that they have on culture or
and
music.
And Salieri really, like, the whole time Mozart's writing operas and he's backstabbing Mozart at every turn with the Emperor and all these kind of things. It's like, it's just a great film. It's so much more than just like, it's about Mozart. Like, it's in its own right just a incredible epic film. So I love this movie.
Would you call it a
biopic,
biopic, or is it more of like a period drama?
I would call it a biopic, but then you get into dangerous territory that's too debatable about actually the life of Mozart. And like, there's just so much unknown. And it's just like, is this real? I would call it a biopic, yes, but you have to enter it with a grain of salt. And
now, does it
how
revise
much real.
history in almost like a Tarantino way, where it's like, okay, clearly this is not what actually happened?
No,
Like,
this very much presents itself as a real story. And not saying it's not. There is historical arguments made on both sides.
So I've never seen it. I've obviously heard of Amadeus. On IMDb, out of 433, almost 434,000 votes, it has an 8.4, which we know IMDb is notoriously shrewd. And that many votes to have over an 8 is pretty insane.
I think you should watch it because, like I said, it's not a movie about, like, yes, it's about Mozart. It's not, but it's not like, oh, I'm going to sit here and watch classical music. Like, this movie is highly dramatic, highly entertaining. I'll send you the clip of the Family Guy thing afterwards. Like, that scene alone is going to make you want to watch the movie.
Okay. Sold. If Family Guy took the time to parody it, then I know it's quality.
If there's one thing Seth MacFarlane loves, is like, he loves his like historical musicians. Like, he makes great analogies.
Well, he himself is like either a classically trained musician or just an aficionado. Like, he did a whole.
Oh yeah, he's a huge nerd. Yeah.
What's the name of like the Frank Sinatra like club style jazz they used to sing? Because he released a legitimate album where obviously his voice is like.
Oh yeah, he's incredible. Yeah.
Nice. Amadeus at number 34, right ahead of Super Troopers, which is, again, some of the double bills you could get like off of our list are incredible. All right, my number 34, right ahead of 10 Years, which is, I'm still kind of shocked it was only that high because I have such an affinity for that movie. One ahead of this, for me, an iconic film in young Jeff Hornacek's life, the 1989 Tim Burton Batman.
Wow.
Starring Michael Keaton.
Oh,
so this was the first time in my life that I can remember watching something, being afraid of it, but liking being afraid of it.
Ooh, that's good.
If that made sense. So I was 1.5 when this movie came out. I think the first time I actually saw it, I was probably 4 or 5. And the Danny Elfman score was iconic. I had not seen the Superman movies with Christopher Reeves until years later. So this was the first superhero movie I had ever seen. And to know that I had toys of the character that I was watching on the screen was fucking insane to me. Like, I was seeing a live action version of the toys that I played with, of the bedspread that I had.
Oh, that's huge.
Of the costume that I wore around my house. And it just fucking blew me away that like cinema could create this thing and exist that I had like fantasized about in my brain. And like I said, the vivid imagery of like the Joker frightening me, but me also being like, I'm scared, but also I think this is fucking awesome, is sort of like a monumental moment, I think, in everyone's life, where it's like you enjoy the terror that you get from something that you're seeing on screen. So always stuck with me. An incredible movie. I went back and rewatched it a couple years. I try and rewatch it like every couple years. So I've probably seen this like 10 to 15 times all the way through in my life. And while, I love this movie, Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne and Batman is still a little weird to me because I'll always see him as like a comic actor first. But the world that it created, and Gotham City, and obviously Jack Nicholson as the Joker, and just like the way that like they portray heroes and villains in this, where it's like not really in our reality, but also like it's close enough to where you can actually like latch onto it and relate to it. Just blew my mind. So this is like an every other year watch for me. The 1989 Batman. It changed the game.
It still hits on a rawness too of like how Gotham should be looked at in terms of like, I will, we can get into the late 90s Batmans, but the one thing I love, the one thing I will hold against the Christopher Nolan trilogy is how clean Gotham is kind of. I mean, obviously it's not clean in terms of the mob, but like the city isn't grungy. Like that's why I was appreciating the Batman, the one that came out 2 years ago. I was like, again, while it wasn't my favorite Batman movie, I loved the Gotham style.
Gotham looks gross, as it should.
Yes, as it should. And when I think back to the original Batman in '89, it's like that was just like, how would you want to live in this grungy, gritty city?
Yeah.
Like you can walk at night, like that, and that's how it feels.
Yeah, and like the suit was iconic before it really got to like, I mean, obviously like Joel Schumacher, rest in peace, went like way off the deep end with the
zoom ins on the butts and the nipples and
exactly. Yeah. But it's also a different Batman because it's not one that like, man, even probably the Schumacher ones do this. Michael Keaton's Batman is never really like kicking the shit out of a bunch of people, but he's still like, you're awesome. It's kind of hard to describe. Like Robert Pattinson's Batman, I think like there's some scenes where he is like fucking brutal.
Oh yeah, like almost too much.
Right. And even though Christian Bale's Batman couldn't move his fucking neck, he has some pretty iconic fight scenes.
Yeah.
But Keaton never really does that. He does way more fighting in The Flash than he ever did in any of his Batman movies. But it works.
I think he almost I mean, he is an inspiration to future Batman characters. I think kind of like in a James Bond-esque where we're like, you got to compare yourself to Sean Connery. It's like, I think you do have to, at some level, look at Keaton and either go for that or go as far away from that.
Yeah.
And that's what we've gotten out of some of our Batman since.
Definitely. I mean, there's like a template for it. And if you're going to follow that, like there's risks involved, you're going to be compared to it. And if you're going to stray away from it, it has to be different enough for people to be like, okay, I get why you did that. So it's a tough role to take on for sure. But I'm glad we've had so many different versions of it. But the 1989 one for me, just as a kid, I mean, first time I remember doing karate kicks in front of my TV, watching something. Definitely.
And you haven't stopped since. Yeah, I was going to say you were just doing that right now.
14 minutes before pod, I was karate kicking. I actually need to ice my groin. I think I fucking pulled something.
Oh, that's not.
I'll be fine. We have enough cortisone in the budget for this podcast that I'll be okay. All right, Cycly, what is your number 33? You're right ahead of Amadeus.
All right, here we go. I'm just gonna straight up David Fincher's Fight Club from 1999. Wow.
Got to be honest, thought this would be in your top 10.
I think there was a time in my life where this was definitely top 10.
You had a real Norton era. This 25th Hour,
Edward Norton,
American History X.
Gosh,
yeah,
was like, and still, in my opinion, was such a good actor. I think, unfortunately, he made some personal / business decisions.
Starting honestly with the Avengers, if I could be up front.
I think he could have been looked at as like a Leonardo. I'm not saying it for looks wise, but in terms of like acting wise, like for like an iconic generational actor. I think.
I mean, Primal Fear.
Primal Fear. I have so many of his movies, obviously, on my top 100. So like
I bought you 25th Hour for one of your birthdays.
I remember. Yeah, still have it. Yeah, and literally still have it. How many of us still have our DVDs? I still have that.
Dude, seriously. I do think, though, to your point, and you might have said this. Sorry, Edward Norton has kind of like admitted, like, yeah, I fucked up.
Yeah, it's like you like made a comment about like Josh Radnor, Jason. All these actors, it's like. I get that at some level you either start looking at yourself in a way or you want to get away from things. I can't ever put myself in those shoes. I understand it from a fundamental level of like, hey, I feel like at work I am becoming just repetitive and vanilla. Like I need to do something else. Like
stuck in.
So I can get that. So I will say though, he was, and still because I love his movies, is one of my favorite actors. But Fight Club, I think introduced me to the concept of an incredible twist. This was one of the first movies, but the problem was this twist has been played out since. So, but you know,
I know you can't blame them for being the first one to do it, but now if anyone did it, you're like, okay, Fight Club.
Yeah, it very much is like, all right, Fight Club, like literally to that point of like Fight Club. The movie. I remember watching it for the first time and being in awe. So like, yeah, this movie has always been part of my, if not favorite movie ever, top 10 favorite movie ever. And the only reason, and it's funny to say like, oh, it's so low on my list, right? Like, but it's not. But I think the problem with a lot of these types of films, that rely almost so much on the twist ending is it defines itself on that twist ending, and as time goes by it doesn't hold the same spark because you relied so much on that. And we can get into that about like Saw or other movies that have huge twists or Sixth Sense. We've talked about Sixth Sense. Like, does it change the movie now that you know the twist?
Is this one of the rare instances where the movie is almost like universally more highly regarded than the book?
Yeah, for sure.
Like if you're like, I prefer the book Fight Club, like, all right, douchebag.
Yeah, like, I mean, good
fucking
for you,
hipster.
but like this movie's incredible. So
right.
So one of the reasons it has dropped on my list is this, like, it's just not rewatchable. And I'm not trying to say rewatchable is the one category, because I had Requiem for a Dream about 8 movies ago, which I've only seen twice, right? Like, so like rewatchable is only one of the categories, but like it's just not something that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go put on Fight Club while I'm wasting time or enjoying in the
building
background.
a grill.
Yeah, like it's just. And it didn't, and it's still again higher than those movies, but it's just, again, it takes away. It's also been almost co-opted in a way from like the incel movement, which is hilarious because if you actually watch Fight Club, it's literally anti that, but they've somehow taken ownership over Fight Club. I'm not blaming that for why it's dropped on my list. That has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. But like, I just.
But
think
these films
funny.
like sit with you for a while, and you kind of revisit their place.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I have this rule, and none of the bros have to adopt this. Obviously, this is just what I do. But I won't move a film up or down on my list unless I rewatch it, because I do think sometimes we remember things just like way differently than they actually were. But Fight Club might be one where if you went back and revisited it, like it might plummet on your list. I don't know.
I wouldn't say it would plummet. I think, like I said, it's still 33 on my list. Like, it's still a fantastic film. Like the performances by Brad Pitt and Edward Norton are iconic. This is my introduction to Helena Bonham Carter, who a few years later gets cast as Bellatrix Lestrange and in Harry Potter, who's such a Harry Potter head. I was like, oh my god, yes! Like,
speaking of Tim Burton, his wife for a long time.
That's right, yeah. And then obviously my favorite person of all time, Jared Leto. I have so many Jared Leto movies in this top 100. I hate it. But I think there's just been a moment of me. It was like saying, like, 1999, Ronnie Cycli views this movie differently now. Like, in the sense of, like, as you age with it, it kind of like the movie itself doesn't hold up as well. Like I said, it's still a fantastic movie. There's just certain aspects of it that just doesn't hit as well. But again, it's still 33 on my list. I think the message at the end of the film is fundamentally amazing, and the fact that I was laughing that it got co-opted by a different group of people is so ironic to me. It cracks me up. But I'm not going to get into politics. So,
I definitely think the imagery, if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil anything, but like the imagery of looking out the window with that Pixies song playing is a moment that I'll always remember.
Chill. I can't think of that, and I love that song in its own right. That song is incredible. Yeah. But when that song comes up on my playlist,
that's all you picture.
Immediately goes to Fight
that
Club.
Imagery. Yeah, which is cool. Like the association you'll make there, I think you have to give the film credit for that, because I haven't seen Fight Club in, I don't know, probably almost 20 years.
I think that's the hard part. It's not a movie. Again, I know this. You can call me out, but this is why we can own it. We always say we don't defend our top 100. Like I said, Requiem for a Dream was an anomaly on my list. Like, that is a movie I've only watched twice, but like, I just don't feel the urge to revisit Fight Club a lot.
Yeah.
I just don't feel like, oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite movies. I need to watch that. It's like, I'm good. I'll probably watch it again one day. If someone tells me they haven't watched Fight Club, I'll be like, bro, sit down. We're watching Fight Club right now.
Yeah. Fincher had a pretty insane run there for a few years.
Oh, I loved his run.
Just between this and Seven alone, it's like, holy shit, bro. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's come. Yeah. I have more Fincher to come.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. I mean, I would imagine. All right. My number 33, what we're going to end the night with, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Have to put a bow on the James Earl Jones tribute.
Not planned, folks. Not planned.
Not planned. All right, here's my memory of Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. I was, I think, 5 years old, and I was visiting my cousins in Atlanta, Georgia, and my uncle threw on. Actually, this is my cousin Michael Monty, who's been on the pod several times. My uncle was like, "Hey, we're gonna watch Star Wars tonight," and I was like, "I've heard of Star Wars, I've never seen it." And from that moment on, I fell in love with movies. The sound design of the TIE fighters, the concept of lightsabers, the breathing of Darth Vader with James Earl Jones. I honestly think I was like drooling on the carpet at one point. At that point, like I had liked movies, whatever, they were cool. This made me fall in love with movies and realize that holy shit, there's some cool fucking movies out there that I need to be paying more attention to. I guess I had always viewed or like things like Star Wars that get so popular in like mainstream or like pop culture, even as a kid, you just kind of like take them for granted. And then you see it, and when it like fucking clicks with you and you get it, and you're like, I love this just as much as everyone else, it's just like a really cool feeling. And I was never the same after seeing Star Wars. I immediately wanted to watch the rest of the trilogy, which I think we did probably up until like 4 a.m. And I mean, the rest is history. Obviously, we're massive Star Wars fans. I know that the franchise recently has had its toxic fan issues and some, middling results of things, but it is a comfort watch for me. And if I'm ever in a bad mood, you can throw on Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, and it just makes things right.
It's so amazing how you remember that's when you know something is good, is when you remember the moment that you're experiencing it. Like when you're like just almost can go back in time and place yourself, because there's not a lot of things that human memory is fickle, and our moments are fleeting, and like when you're seeing something like that, you're part of a thing that's bigger than you.
Yeah,
even at 5 years old.
it's true. It's just a really, really cool moment. And like sci-fi movies, I think at the time, I didn't even know like what they could do visually. And so when I saw that, I was like, holy fuck, how do they have like laser swords and ships flying at each other? And this is insane. I love it.
And it's crazy to imagine, like, that's why I'm so jealous of people who saw that in theaters in 77.
Oh, I know, right?
Like,
honestly, the balls to even buy a ticket to that in 77 would have been pretty crazy. Like, you want to see what? Star Wars? The fuck is that?
I think we've told this story on the pod. There was a bet between Steven Spielberg and George Lucas about what was going to be bigger. Was it that? And what was the Spielberg movie that came out?
Was it Close Encounters?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And like George, like no, he literally believed no one was going to fucking see Star Wars.
I mean, I've heard stories. I think it was even like Alec Guinness at the time was like, as we're making it, I was like, George, what the hell is this?
He's saving character the whole time.
Yeah, it's like, but I also want another percentage point on my back end deal.
Yeah.
when you see the Jawas come out, you're like, what the fuck am I doing with my life today?
I've given you a hard time for this too because of two things: Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. But I mean, I also don't blame you for not taking time because it's a lot of effort to do these things. But when you watch Star Wars or have that moment and you realize like why people are the way they are about it, like, and that's why like I hate when people are like, oh, I don't want to like what's cool because that makes me cool. It's like, dude, there's a reason people like this shit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like there is a reason it has struck a chord. There's a reason it fundamentally just hits into your soul. And, when we're all trying to convince our friends to watch something, and then you see your friend going, oh, I don't want to watch that because I've never seen it. Remember our friend Mark from high school? He would always talk about how because he hadn't seen Star Wars, hadn't seen something, he'll never watch it because he thinks that, like, dude, didn't you? So then,
how do you ever watch anything? You have to always watch something for the first time.
You are missing out on something really awesome. Like that's fine if you really want to make the choice to not watch it. That is definitely your prerogative. But you are almost holding yourself back from enjoying something incredible.
But by that logic, you would never see anything. Because you have to always watch something for the first time.
Right. I just think, but I think some people love the fact when they get to the back. I've never seen a Star Wars movie. I've never read a Harry Potter book. I've never.
Yeah, at this point, it's almost like a point of pride for these fucking weirdos.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll always want to convince someone. I'm like, dude, just do it. Like, but they think it's like the anti, you know.
Yeah. Like what you like, but we have so few things in life these days that make people happy. If someone likes something, just let them fucking
Dude, just let them like it.
Yeah.
Let them like it. That's the whole point of this top 100. Don't guilt us for the movie. I mean, guilt Banner. I've said that over and over.
Yeah, his list raises
It's
some
bad.
questions.
Guys, it's really bad.
It's rough. I'm glad that it's his though, because coming into this, we were like, a Banner, you have to do like a Banner type style list.
I honestly, well, I actually know his. I'm guessing I know his number one. I think we all know his number one, but I am still excited to see some of the shit that makes his top 10.
Yeah, I mean, if his number one isn't what I think we should all take bets now. I'd be shocked.
If this was Vegas, would give us a penny on $1,000 on his number one.
I think
it's so guaranteed.
Like once we hit like the top 15, we should all try and predict the other bros number ones.
That would be good.
That'd be really fun.
I think I've said this. I have a good guess at Nate Thurman's, and I have an almost guaranteed guess at Banners. Yours,
yeah, I think I could lock. I think I could lock both of theirs in. Yeah, I don't know about yours. I'd have to think about yours.
Yeah, yours. I have a couple in mind. I would have guaranteed.
I'm not gonna lie. I would have had Fight Club as a dark horse candidate.
I think 10, 15 years ago, yeah. I just think that movie just I still love it. I mean, it's 33rd. That's not an insult. That is a fucking compliment.
We talk about this is rarefied air. We've been alive a long fucking time. We're all old as shit.
And we have seen a lot of movies.
Correct. So like my movies list, my spreadsheet where I just like rank things. I think I'm almost to 1,000 right now on it.
Yeah.
Which is disgusting. So, and I believe Bikini Hackers is still the last ranked movie on there.
That's a compliment in itself.
If not, it's second to last.
I always say this. I say this in betting. I say this in sports. That's just as hard to be number one.
Absolutely.
To be the worst is just as hard to be the best.
I mean, when you look at the sheer number of films, to be at the top or bottom of that list in any way is Now, impressive can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah, I'm not complimenting it, but I am though at the same time.
I know we can't do like a bottom 100. That would be pretty arduous. But like, I could easily look at my list and do like a bottom 10.
Could do a bottom like 5 episode.
That'd be fun. I'm not rewatching any of those fucking movies though. Bikini. This is the last thing I'll say. People are like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Bikini Hackers is what, like 50 minutes long?
It's an hour and 10 because it has to be, right? Like,
it took me. We say this a lot. It took me 3 sittings to watch it.
Dude, I can watch all the Lord of the Rings movies, Godfather, all the Star, whatever.
Yeah.
So 3-hour plus movies in one sitting, no problem. I have never sat there for a movie that's 70 minutes.
I remember texting you and I'm like, how has it only been 20 minutes of this? Like, I feel like I'm at Guantanamo Bay and they're trying to get information out of me.
If you ever want time to slow down because you're scared about it going fast and you're missing time with your kids or family, just put this movie on. Slow down the whole thing.
I remember it would randomly cut to these like text screens of like and I'm like, what in the fuck?
Oh, they never told us who was doing that, by the way. Do you remember that?
I guess not.
we never realized who was typing.
The whole plan makes no whatever. Bikini Hackers. Has Banner seen that movie yet? How did you come across that film? Because you told me to watch it. I blame you.
I'm a you know how fucked up I am. I'm a subscriber to on Reddit like bad movies.
Was that on like Tubi? That's the most
so.
Tubi thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah. No, I literally subscribe to a subreddit that talks about about bad movies, and someone was like, "Guys, I have found the coup de grace. I have found the worst movie of all time." And everyone's like, "Oh, Bikini Hackers, I've seen it." Like everyone, I was like,
"They like what? You know about it?"
Yeah, everyone in this page, like on this subreddit, has to be sick people. Like, I'm one of them. So,
God, is there anyone on there clamoring for a sequel? Like, there's some character loose ends here that
I don't know, man. Bikini Hackers 2.
God damn
that
it!
Movie had
Let's start the GoFundMe.
If we're getting Velocipaster 2 and 3, then we can get Bikini Hackers 2 and.
We worship Velocipaster and our man Brennan Steer on this pod.
We gotta.
That's a guy I would love to get back on the pod. Well, that was a great.
Absolutely have to.
a great time. We'll always, I think I'll tell our grandkids the story of how we interviewed the director for a movie so long that he missed one of the premieres of his movie.
That I still can't believe that. The fact that he messaged us the next day was like, oops.
Yeah, I kind of missed.
I feel kind of guilty.
I kind of do too. But
didn't we say to him on the pod, like, we only had him 30 minutes, and I said at one point, like, hey, man, you were supposed to go. He's like, nah, I'm having fun. Like,
dude, he talked to us for like an hour, 10 minutes. He was the coolest dude.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Cycling, anything you want to leave the people with for episode 229?
No, just drive. If you're driving on the left lane of the highway, you better be going faster than the people to the right of you, because that's a passing lane, guys. The passing lane. Do not go slow in the left lane.
Speaking of traffic today, I saw something that kind of disappointed me. We had an accident that it was like blocking off 2 lanes of traffic where I was at. So we were 3 people trying to merge into one. And guy who knows what's going on pulls into the left lane, speeds in front of everyone, and then is signaling right to like merge ahead of all these people. I'm like, dude, you know what's the situation here? Like, you trying to cut everyone is gross, and we all see through it. Of course, someone let him in.
What's wrong with people?
So much. Someone let him in because those people get rewarded.
Yeah, I hate all that people. Oh, nothing makes me more mad.
Yeah, so what's going to decentivize him from doing that next time? He got what he wanted.
I'm always almost more mad at the people who let him in than the person doing the crime.
You could argue they're the bigger problem, because if he speeds up and no one lets him in, he actually gets like punished for it.
Maybe he'll look in life and be like, "Where did I go wrong? I should call my parents."
I hope he splashes water on his face and stares at himself in a mirror for a very prolonged period of time.
Yeah, at a Holiday Inn Express for some reason.
Yeah, they need to bring those commercials back. All right, for our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli, I am the mayor, Jeff Hornacek, and we are the Bro Force Squad podcast. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X, at Bro Force Squad. That same at is where we're at on Threads and Instagram. Also type in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, pretty much anywhere you find your podcast, you'll find us. And we're on our website, broforcesquad.com. Till next time, we will not let you into our lane if there's an accident and you're trying to speed up past us. Especially if you have a baby on board sticker. If it's faded, I know I can raise into your car because the baby's like...
I always love that. Like, so I was going to...
Yeah, what am I supposed to do differently? Or are you just bragging in 6 seconds?
That's fair.